Hello and welcome to ReTalk. What are we waiting for? Let's start. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure being here. I've read about all your efforts, and I think that's truly great. You are making it easier for people to decide on how and what they should do in order to buy a home, and then you're also making it easier for developers to reach out to prospective consumers, and I think that's a service that was very much needed. So,
thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words. Let's quickly start. As an advocate, what do you think is the current state of real estate, sir?
Okay, so the first disclosure I've got to make that your viewers actually should watch out for us. This is not a paid interview, right? So, which means like I've come here with a view to inform people about what precautions they need to take, and I've come here with a love of public interest. And then I believe you are also motivated by the same concern. So people should know that this is not a lawyer who's been paid, and so he's going to give out a couple of things. So this will be a free-ranging discussion. And the state of the law is good. I think, you have to be grateful to the Parliament of India, both the NDA that's in power right now and then the UPA before that, because both of them put together have come out with this nice law, Real Estate Regulation and Development Act of 2016, or what we call as RERA. RERA has, on paper at least, brought about a sea change in how real estate sector is regulated. But a lot, still needs to be done. And I think in India, you can bring about a change, meaningful change, not just in a short time, but then it would take 10, 15, 20 years. I think we've now traversed 7, 8 years of RERA. So another 10 years from now, I think we will have a sea change. But right now, it's actually nice, but it's not all, rosy.
Are there any recent developments, changes in real estate law, sir?
Well, it's fair to say that the public is generally not well informed. Of course, the public does know that there is something called a RERA, which developers don't like that much, and that it offers some degree of protection. But what degree of protection is offered by RERA is a matter I think the public is largely unaware of. So it helps to assume that our viewers don't know much about RERA. And I think it's important to know the broad features of RERA and then move forward from there. But at the same time, if some home buyer is already in trouble, then notwithstanding whatever gyan they might want to acquire by watching these videos, it's equally important that they reach out to a lawyer. And then they also find out from the lawyer if that lawyer has done sufficient cases in real estate. It may not be cases in RERA, but it's important because this now tends to be a very specialized branch of law. You just can't just walk into any lawyer's office and then say that I have a problem with my home, with my apartment, can you help me out? Because this tends to be one where the lawyer must have prior knowledge of various statutes. Like you take Bangalore. Now Bangalore is governed by so many different statutes, so it's important for the lawyer to have a working knowledge of the BBMP Act of 2020, of the Karnataka Municipal Corporations Act of 1976, of the BDA Act, right? And then the other various BMRDA laws and policies that govern BMRDA and all of that. So it's important for people to have a brief overview only, and then if they want to move forward, it's my advice that they should always go over to a specialist lawyer. Now, so far as broad features of RERA that protect home buyers are concerned, you see, when people buy a house, they've actually bought into a promise made by a promoter. So very often people assume that they are going over to promoters who made name for themselves, who made hundreds of projects like this, and therefore, while they might just want to buy a house, they are not quite so important to the promoter. Now that's a destructive mindset.
Yes.
You got to get out of that destructive mindset, because what we've seen in India is that no matter whatever brand your promoter gives you, or whatever might be the great name the promoter has earned, there is an overwhelming statistical possibility that you will be disappointed with your purchase. You will be terribly disappointed with your purchase. And in order to bring down your disappointment, there are many things that you could do. One of which is never assume you are unimportant to your promoter simply because you see your promoter is so big, he's made hundreds of projects, and you're just buying one apartment in his new project. You should never consider yourself to be unimportant. Now, if that is how you start, then you have to sign up for a lifetime of suffering and misery, because you would never be able to demand reasonable terms, you would never be able to demand meaningful facilities from your promoter, and obviously you're not going to get it. So it's so very important that you consider yourself to be important enough to your promoter. It does not matter that you're buying a house that barely is 25 or 30 lakhs or 40 lakhs. Now, we're not just talking of Bangalore. There are smaller cities where there are houses that are offered, apartments that are offered for 25, 30 lakhs as well. So we are addressing a lot of those people as well. So it's important for you to consider yourself to be important, that when you go over to your promoter's office, ask to meet with your promoter. And if your promoter is just too important for the project that he can't make time to meet with you, please make note. When you have a problem a year down the line or 2 years down the line, you won't have anybody to talk to. And unless and until you meet with your promoter, it should not matter how big your promoter is, unless you meet with him. And of course, I'm not saying that you must have private time with your promoter. You could always request the office, the real estate office, to arrange for a meeting with other similar minded buyers as well. So you talk to your promoter, and notwithstanding all the things on paper, there will be questions for you to ask. Please ask those questions to your promoter. And so we will keep this in a conversational. So I want you to ask more and more questions.
Absolutely. I mean, it's pleasure to listen to you, sir. I mean, the details coming from a person like you is always encouraging. I think the audience will learn a lot. Getting to the next question, what might be the percentile of real estate cases in these courts, sir?
Real estate cases don't, they are there now that we have the RERA tribunal. There are a lot of cases in the RERA tribunal. Okay. There are relatively fewer cases that come to the high courts, and then even fewer more when they go to the Supreme Court. Okay. So they're not very big in the high court or in the Supreme Court, but then they in fact occupy the entire spectrum in the RERA tribunals. It's fair to say that people will feel, disappointed and cheated. Now, why is that happening? That's happening for several reasons. The law says that the promoter, before he engages in commerce with the consumer, he will have to register himself with the RERA. Yes. RERA, you have for every state in this country, you have a RERA. Yes. Now, if you are a promoter who wants to develop a project, there are many things that you will have to do beforehand before you get yourself registered. Now, if after you register, alone you can actually engage in commerce, you can actually issue an advertisement, because every advertisement will have to have the RERA registration number. Yes. So, a promoter should in fact get the title of the land over which he intends to construct. He will then have to identify who are the people that have said they will lend money to the promoter concerned. Then the promoter will also have to give a background of all of his previous projects, the state of those previous projects. And the law insists that the promoter will also, make sure that all the monies that he receives from his customers will be put in a separate dedicated account, and the expenditure from that account will all be audited. Yes. By a competent professional. Yes. And because this is to prevent promoters from dreaming too much, from taking up and then announcing so many different projects and then squandering money. Yes. By removing the proceeds of one project into another and all that. So all of this will now not be possible on paper. Yes. In actual life, we do find that there are unscrupulous promoters which in fact try and violate the law, but the law has created sufficient deterrent. So that's how I think, and also because there is this shortage of videos online on meaningful legal discussion about these aspects, we could take this slowly. I mean, you could ask me more questions.
Recently, RERA says they are going to rate projects. So, do you think it's a nice move, sir?
Well, I don't think it's really a very nice move, because if the government gets involved and starts rating projects, then the government is actually jumping the gun, because the government might be awarding a rating which is in fact not warranted, okay, which the promoter does not deserve. Okay. And that may tend to lull consumers into complacency. Now, I think it might be a bit disappointing to many of your viewers to know what I have to say next, and what I have to say next is this. If you were to build your own house, that would be the greatest thing to happen. Yes. Now, because that's impractical for 99.99% of the population, you are then settling for a house built by someone else. Now, when you build a house for yourself, the kind of passion, the kind of care, attention to detail that you would put is something that your promoter may not be motivated to put when you buy a house from him. But this does not mean that every promoter is only business minded. You can always think about wonderful promoters. Yes. There are great projects across the country. Okay. You just have to seek out those projects. So you should know, therefore, that someone else is doing this for you, and therefore it helps a great deal to get involved. Right? Ask for every detail, and every promoter is required under the law to also give you a model apartment. And you're expected to get into the model apartment, see the model apartment for yourself, and then don't assume anything. Ask questions. And when you go to a model apartment, please make sure that there's somebody to attend to you and somebody willing to answer all of your questions. Now, it's possible serious professionals might think that they might be judged negatively should they raise many questions. And that's a problem. That's a problem in your thought. Please ask questions, because if you're now undecided, if you don't get answers now, and then 3 years later or 2 years later, if you find something falling off, then you will regret that you did not make sufficient inquiries. Yes. So you have to go there, and then you have to ask questions, and please be that unreasonable consumer, unreasonable customer. And this is my urge, this is my urging to all of you watching this. Please be a very unreasonable customer. Please make demands. Please ask what is what. And it's only when you write down everything. Now, if you go there in the belief that the marketplace is all corrupt, that all projects are going to be unsatisfactory, if you start with that mindset, then I want to tell you, please don't have that mindset. In your city, in your town, look out for people, look out for good developers, good promoters, and there are good developers, good promoters in every town, in every city in this country. So you just have to work hard to get to them.
Yes. I'm sure you would have handled so many cases, sir, in your lifespan of practicing as an advocate. Most complex case related to real estate?
Well, there are these complex cases where, unfortunately, now you see that playing out in the Supreme Court. People sunk in their life savings, and then they found out that the building was in fact constructed by violating every known guideline, rule and regulation. So the court did not have any option but to ask for demolition of that. And then it also becomes difficult to really reimburse or compensate the buyers. So we find this, and our heart breaks every time we come across this, because I know that buying a home very often is a decision that a person does not make lightly. A person is putting his lifetime savings into a house, and so it's important for people to get more involved. And how do they get involved? Well, you have to read it, and if you don't follow English, ask your promoter to give you a proper translation and then to authenticate it and say, you have to make demands. That's what I've been telling. So let's say you only know Marathi, you can't read English, and you're in Bombay. When you go over to your promoter, ask him to give you a Marathi translation of the agreement. It's required under law that he provide you with one. If you are in Karnataka, ask for a Kannada translation, because if that is all you know, then please read it in Kannada, please understand it. And if there is a clause that you don't understand, say you want actually clarity or guidance on that. And there are things that law already provides for you, which is if there are structural defects. Let's assume for a moment your promoter is asking you to sign on an agreement that says if there are structural defects and those defects occur within 2 years, then he will repair those defects, and he would not be responsible for structural defects beyond a period of 2 years. The law already says that the promoter's discretion in these matters would be taken out. The promoter is bound to make sure that if there are structural defects within 5 years of handing over the property to you, he will have to repair it at his own expense. It's unfortunately not quite widely known. Okay. So even if you sign on a dotted line wherein you say that, look, I will hold you liable for 2 years only, the law says all of that is overwritten. So that should give you a measure of peace. Okay. Structural defects is one area where people actually break their heads. Very often people see that within 6 months of getting into a property, things are falling off and all that. So they should know When something like that happens, they have to make a written request to the promoter, and then the promoter is obligated to repair it or to begin the work of repair within 30 days. If he does not, then you have an option to ask for compensation. Every buyer should be aware of this. So the object of RERA, for which we will thank the current India government and also the previous UPA government, because they both came together to make it possible, because states were against it. Okay. Nearly every state was against it, because there is this build a local politician nexus, right? So they were so much against it. West Bengal came out with its own law to override the central law. That was overridden by the Supreme Court. Now in Karnataka, the state actually has kept out ongoing projects from RERA. Now that's a different topic we will not touch right here. Now that's being litigated in the High Court, and I'm happy and proud to say that I am one of the lawyers who is urging that the Karnataka government is doing disservice to millions of home buyers by keeping ongoing projects outside of RERA. So when RERA came into effect on the 1st of May 2017, yes, it was meant to apply to ongoing projects also, yes, but Karnataka kept out ongoing projects. Now that part is still in court, and certainly the home buyers will prevail there.
3 takes, if you can just summarize this entire episode for us.
So audience, the buyers of real estate, whether it's a layout or it's a building, they have to know one thing, which is the more inquiries they make, the better their purchase will turn out to be. They should not blindly trust a promoter, blindly trust a brand, because almost every brand has run into some trouble or the other, almost. There are certainly some brands that have not run into trouble as it. So people have to trust less and then make inquiries and then visit a model apartment and try to be that unreasonable customer and try to meet with the promoter. If you are unimportant for the promoter to meet, then your purchase will be unimportant for the promoter to address when you develop a problem, and you are going to develop a problem. Therefore, I am probably making life difficult for a lot of people who watch this, who thought, if I buy into this fancy apartment, give that asking price, I have a peace of mind for 20 years. That's just not true. So if I've done anything in this 20 minutes, that is to prick this bubble and say, you have a duty to fulfill, and that duty is please make inquiries. Yes. Don't trust.
Yes. Brilliant, sir. Before we complete this episode, what do you feel about a platform like ReTalk, sir? Real Estate Talk. We are trying to, we realize there's a huge scope for people to learn real estate, because real estate has always been a myth, saying my uncle had bought a property, he made a lot of money, so I should also buy that, or I should listen to him and follow that trend. With technology and AI evolving, it's all about education. So what do you feel, and what would you suggest to our audience on ReTalk?
Very true. I think a forum like yours was very much the need, because it's important for people to have not motivated advice. Now, in my 20 minutes of discussion, there's nobody that I've pushed. All I've done is to offer people some meaningful method by which they can make their purchase actually more safe and secure, because they're going to sink their life savings into it. So it's important for forums like yours. Now you invited me, yes, right? And I've come here actually out of public interest, and you're doing this program out of public interest, but you're incurring a great deal of cost here, right? So it's important for people like you, and it's important for your very forum actually to have a reach to a greater audience. So people that are watching you, they should not just keep the good thing to themselves. They should actually share. If they truly believe in what this motto is, they should share these videos more widely, so that people will stop, fantasizing about their next project, and they will be more practical about how that project is developing. And the money that the promoter receives, which bank account is the money going to? Because all of these are meant to be public documents. Your RERA, the page where your promoter has a site. So that is one that you must more often frequent. And please be unreasonable. And if your promoter, is all right with you being unreasonable, then you have a better prospect once you buy your houses. Not otherwise.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your time. I think I have learnt a lot because law was something which was always had been okay. In case there is a dispute, I'm going to go there. But I think you made certain points very clear today, saying that before we enter into any real estate transaction, we'll need to be aware, we'll need to hold a lot of people accountable for this, and very important, we will need to give a lot of time and treat it as our own home when we are trusting someone else. I think these points were
so
amazing.
go around. So if you want to buy a house, don't just stop with one or two promoters. Please go around and then visit as many as possible. Please vex promoters as much as possible. And if you want to buy some jewelry, I'm sure you spend a couple of days, you go around to different jewelers. If you want to buy a house, don't just go to one promoter. Don't just do that, right? Start comparing and then go over to different places. Explore different options. And if you know of someone who's lived, in some other project developed by that very promoter, go talk to them.